You're welcome back, and this is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. I'd like us to start this one very quickly also by first listening to A.C. Coleman, head of state at the Ghana Revenue Authority, defend the decision on one of multimedia's platforms, Asempa FM. Let's listen to her.
Comparables into consideration. After I hear comparables,
on
rent, it's to give GRA value for money. Yeah. Secondly, we look at the strategic location of the building, whether a bit may serve a purpose of revenue generation. To make my says our property could free say a GRA core revenue partner. I'm say
improvement about.
Okay, so that's also an opportunity for you to see the property in question and decide for yourself. So the claim has been that the acting board chairman of the Ghana Revenue Authority has leased 2 properties to the authority, raising questions of potential conflict of interest. Adelaide Eshrain owns Fuel Enterprise, which rented out 2 buildings, a 3-story duplex commercial building at Agbogloshi and a 2-story office accommodation our South Industrial area, both right here in Accra. The 2-story office accommodation at South Industrial area was also leased to the GRA in June 2019, and it's for 5 years. The rent is supposed to be for, over 50,000 cedis a month, or if you like, 604 Ghana cedis per month. There is also a common area maintenance fee of 120,000 Ghana cedis per year, and people have been raising some questions. Let me begin with Dr. Odrosai. So briefly, what do you make of what you read about this tenancy?
Samson, you see, the issue of potential conflict of interest in this country is coming up almost every day. But the question we need to ask ourselves is, what is the law? If you are a member of a board, is it to say that if you have a property, you cannot lease it to that organization? What I'm also hearing is that Fuel Enterprise is in the equation. And Fuel Enterprise may not be the same as Agnes Asherin. We need to get it clear.
As in legal terms.
In legal terms, that's right. And I also want to establish whether or not this particular arrangement was fully disclosed by the acting board chair. The third one is also that I also get a sense that the transaction started before she even joined the board. I also want to establish the commercial value in terms of value for money to the organization. If they were to have a similar property within the same environment, was it going to go for the same rent arrangement? They
said they had checked other and places, compared with others, and this was value for money for them.
Value for money. And then how many square meters are we getting in terms of the rent we are paying? In all of this, I just want us to be fair to her and fair to Ghana as a corporate entity. That if there is conflict of interest, what is the legal basis? Because it seems to me that in most cases, people mention issues of potential conflict of interest without putting a finger on one thing or the other or grounding it in law. Now, we may lack the legal basis to even say that she has breached one conflict of interest rule or the other because she owns that particular property. I would say that going forward, if she fully disclosed, the board should come out and say so that, look, we were aware, there was full disclosure, there is no conflict of interest. I expect the board to speak, even though she's the acting board chair. In the absence of the acting board chair, who is expected to respond to this matter?
The figures, you are saying you don't want to deal with the figures in isolation.
Yes, it is dangerous to deal with the figures in isolation because you have to put it in context. How many square meters are we paying for? If we have similar structures within similar environment, were we going to pay same higher or lower amount. We need to do that those comparisons to be able to draw a very good conclusion. And the issue of disclosure is important. Okay. Was there a full disclosure? If there was a full disclosure, why do we say that there is potential conflict? And I think that we should be able to review our conflict of interest laws in this country and establish the parameters well, so we'll be able to have good basis to draw these conclusions.
Okay. John, so what are the facts as you know them, and what do the facts tell you about this case?
The facts tell me that the transaction did not commence before she became the board chair. That's number one.
Okay.
2 properties are supposed to have been rented at Agbogboloshi and South Industrial area. And it's only her properties that met whatever criteria they are supposed to have set. We don't know that criteria. We don't have that information. And so we cannot make proper comparison. When you mentioned this, I just thought that I should do some background check. So I checked the Rent Control Act, 220, which says that you cannot pay beyond 6 months. Oh, I thought I saw something like that. You can correct it.
You're right.
You can correct it.
It's there, but it's practically impossible. It's practically impossible.
People have lost their offices because of breaching this. So please, let's not treat it like
we are talking of the GRA.
Okay.
We are not talking of John Jinapo. We are members of parliament. Hey, how can we make this
go on?
3 years?
Go on.
I'm surprised. I'm saying that they should know better. Because this is a government institution, and not just a government institution, but the GRA, revenue, responsible for collecting revenues. So if you breach the law, then what are you telling others?
Perhaps the law is so outmoded.
So let's look at it. Until the law is breached, you can't go and say that a law is outmoded, so you would breach the law anyhow you want it. And so these are the issues. But you see, like Prof said, did she declare her interest and all that? You know, in this world, there are legal issues. That is true. But human beings are also rational. That is why we are called human beings. If it comes out that the board chair is rented 2 of her properties to the institution that she chairs, immediately it raises some level of concern. The only way to cure this is to come out with proper information. And so when I heard the lady say that it is because of that rent, that's why their revenues are going up, I said, wow, there's a problem. That because they rented that property, their revenues are going up. What kind of story is this? What kind of story is this?
Maybe the location.
Please, it just doesn't jive. And for me, I think that we should be a bit more circumspect, a bit more careful, especially when we occupy such sensitive positions. Look, the president can decide that he would fly a chartered jet every time. He wouldn't have breached any law. But when you are making decisions, you ought to be cautious. And it ought to be above board. Not just on legal matters, on moral issues, based on principle and all that. I think that given the circumstance, it could have been handled much, much better. That's my point.
Okay. So what are we really talking about here? Have you found out to know if procurement processes were breached in this process? Like he has a question about were there disclosures made about her interest in the property? Comparatively, did they take that at a higher price than they would have gotten? From the GRA, they indicate to us the procurement processes were followed to the letter. They had inspected other properties and they compared the prices. This was fit for purpose.
Thank you.
And comparatively was what worked for them. It was also near to the taxpayers they were seeking to bring in.
And I wish I had seen that report. You see, it's one thing telling us you did this, you did that, you did that. And that's something that I think as a nation... Until
we know the contrary, why do you dispute what
I'm not disputing. I'm saying I want to be convinced that, because if the lady says that just by citing their office there, their revenues have begun to increase.
Perhaps that is what she said, but that is what the extract was. She spoke for about an hour on Asempa. That is the extract.
No problem, no problem. You see, and I'm saying that we should begin to move to the culture where these reports are shared with everybody. Let's throw more light on some of this, especially even when officials are investigated, you just hear that so-so has been cleared. Nobody gets to see the report. We don't know the content of the report. Even in America, as developed as they are, the vice president traveled recently to Ireland. He slept in a hotel owned by the Trump group. It's a big issue in the United States. That is part of the democratic process. So yeah. I think that, look, if they are convinced that they inspected properties, one, which properties did they inspect? What are the costs involved? How did they go about the comparison? When the report is before us, we can then read that report and make an informed decision. Today we are talking about an FTI report because we've read it. If we had seen those reports, I'm sure that we can make an, and probably even comment.
So yeah, they said that they did the market area analysis. They did to determine the going rental rates for comparable properties in the area. They did this, and that's from the market analysis. The estate unit was satisfied that the rent being offered for the Fuel Enterprise building was more reasonable and fair. In addition to the reasonableness of the rent being offered, the Fuel Enterprise building had the following underlisted advantages compared to the others that they had checked. A, spacious car park. B, CCTV availability. These are already in the property. C, office already partitioned to suit GRA office needs. D, common use of resources by staff. E, air conditioners installed, already in before they get in. F, ancillary security services existing. G, existing generator. And H, nearness to decent eatery.
Yes. All those facilities come into play. My pain in this process is the condemnation before analysis. It is becoming a little, how do you say it? People's reputations are dragged down into the mud before analysis is made. The search for an appropriate property in Agbogbloshie 4, the GRA STO, started as far back as 2014, when they wanted to move out of the property in which they were, which was in a bad state. E-waste, flood prone, structural integrity in dispute and all that. Moved out to another property, 2016, the same issues. And in and around that time, they were already considering this property. So at the time, the decisions were made through a technical process. GRA is too big to take decisions off the cuff. Through a technical process, the lady was not even board chair. The poor lady was not even board chair. So it is painful that it turns out that at the end of the day, she becomes acting chair, and somebody digs this up and creates the impression that as soon as she became acting chair, GRA moved into her property and paid her huge sums of money.
Coincidence.
Okay.
Yes. and the pricing was interrogated, and it is sound pricing.
Okay.
The pricing was it is not fair to the lady. We have a right to interrogate them, but let us interrogate it in the proper context. Let's not condemn Ghanaians who have done something for themselves, who are contributing to this economy, before we interrogate the issue.
Wow.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. Mama, I'm sorry, but we have run out of time.
If we have time, I will show you the documents.
Boabeng Asamoah, he's MP Adenta constituency and Director of Communications of the NPP. Liman Mohammed is a lawyer. Dr. Eric Odru Osai is a governance expert and a lawyer. And John Abdullahi Jinapo is MP Yape Kusogu and member Finance Committee. I'm Samson Ladia. Been your host, and my outfit as always is by Latida. Have a good afternoon.